Susan Anthony. I'm a master's student at Dalhousie University and I work as a data scientist intern at Nuance. Now let me introduce you to the other ladies out here with me. Sharmi is a technical manager in the R&D department at Nuance. Jessica is the director of the R&D department and Anne is Nuance fellow. Now this event is inspired by an activity that we all did together, creating a memory collage and we can share with you. The details is on how you can create your own. By doing this memory collage, I got a chance to learn more about these three women's personal life and how this associates with technology and career pursuits. Now, what's a memory collage? Jessica, can you give us some tips on what's a memory collage?
So what's a memory box? We decided to find 5 physical things in our homes that brought memories and inspiration to us. We chose things that weren't necessarily publicly known about us, and we found that when we talked about them and shared them together, we came up with a couple of themes that were very interesting and common about them, and then also differences that we thought were very interesting. And so we're sharing them with you today.
So, let's start with you, Anne. Can you give us an example for your inspiration in life?
I have lots of inspirations in life, but when we were creating this memory box, I chose this book. It's Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. And it has nothing to do with Alice. It has to do with the fact that when I was a middle school student back in Soviet Union, when there was no internet and no personal computers, I wrote a letter to a British magazine telling about my life, how I'm trying to learn English language, and asked how they can help me to learn about the culture in England. And they published my letter in this newspaper with my home address. And then I was flooded with letters, not only from England, but from Germany, from Czechoslovakia, from Bulgaria, and from all over country, lots of countries from the Western and Eastern Europe. So then I realized by getting all these letters, number one, the world is a small place. Number two, what I realized, all kids are alike, even with the different cultures, with the different capitalism and socialism systems, we're all alike. We're the same, we're diverse, and we share the same interest. What this experience helped me was to build some kind of a communication skills. I learned to write letters. I learned to express my thoughts on the paper. I learned to think before saying something to some people who are not from my culture. I learned to read their letters and understand how they live. And continuing in my life, even until today, whenever I go to meetings, whenever I have to say something, I do lots of preparation work. I read, I analyze, I write my talking points, and it helps me to be ready and to be focused whenever I do certain things. So that's my small thing that inspired me.
That's really nice.
Yes.
Yeah. I have an item as well, kind of thinking back, and it takes me back to, my heritage a bit. And, from, I have this bracelet that my grandmother had given me. She had grown up in China through the Cultural Revolution, and they had to flee to Mongolia. She had told me stories of her riding wild horses in Mongolia, and so lived a very kind of interesting, rich life, but then also moved, had to take, her family to Taiwan, and then from Taiwan also just really promoted an ethics of education, and bringing that to bring everybody from of their children to the United States to study and to kind of have a better way of life. And so
a lot of, I think about the sort of the practices that she and the value set that she had growing up and imparted in terms of her as the matriarch of this family, and a lot of the aunts that I'm very proud of that form this family. And so I think about you know, in terms of my life and sometimes my hardships, I wonder how that compares, you know, to what my grandmother had experienced and, you know, even felt. And you know, I kind of think about the pursuits that I go after and challenges, and sort of think through, you know, how it might have been approached, you know, by my generations before. So it's just something that, you know, is a small thing, but kind of brings me back to a lot of different memories.
Jessica, I think it's a very nice thing that you chose this bracelet, because even I'm not familiar with your grandmother. I never met her, but it looks like she has been a very strong personality, and she had the dedication to move the family from China, through Mongolia, through Taiwan to United States. This is a very inspiring thing to.
What's interesting is so I don't really wear it. I used to wear it, but she always wore one. It was very, you know, emblematic of her. She always wore that, and she always had her red lipstick perfect on. And then when she would grab you, she would like grab you like this, you know, and then she'd say, oh, you know, be very serious in terms of what she was asking somebody to do, you know, and she was a very no-nonsense person. And in some ways, it's just, I don't know, it's very inspiring to me to think this woman who looks kind of gentle and stately, you know, could actually be kind of fierce as well on the inside. So I don't know, something about that.
That's
really...
such a good story, Jessica. Wow, it gives me chill listening
like she had a
wow, I could visualize.
Like she had a strong personality.
Yeah, she really did. And anyway, it almost brings me some tears thinking about her, because she's just so important, and so just a big figure in my life. Even though we didn't live close together, you know, she wanted to live in downtown LA in the city by herself, very independent woman, until, you know, her later years. And so she just really was just a very strong person. Yeah.
Very nice.
I see that all of you are from different backgrounds. So Sharmi, can you show us a few items that you can relate to your culture?
Yeah, sure. Actually, one of my 5 elements I brought today to share with everybody is my heritage. Actually, I brought myself, I could say that I did actually bring some of these. I'm from India, and I brought some items which really represents me. And look at this, like it's a dangly big dazzling earring I like to wear, and then like a green colorful scarves I wear. I love to dress up. I love to be with wearing all the bangles. That's part of me, and I try to teach that to my children too, that celebrate your root, where you are from, and then enjoy that and be proud of it, and be happy and show confidence that it all shows in you, like how beautiful you are and how the house, it just shines from inside. But again, if we move that aside, my job is actually related to, I do speech recognition at my work, and so it's detecting speech and converting speech to text. And even at my job, I see that the work I have to do is understanding speech from so many different backgrounds, and people speaking English with who have different ethnic background. They bring in the their own culture, their own way of speaking their first language to the English as the second language, which is called accents. So detecting accent is part of my everyday daily job, and it's just so much diverse in culture and in the way to understand speech from different regions of America, different parts of the world, how they speak it, and how they accent one part over other, how the usage of words and intonations and all of these things. It's so fascinating for me to study languages and study variations of languages as it moves geographically from one region to other. And I'm from India, and in India, if you know that every 200 miles you drive, there's a change of language, change of culture, everything. So in India, there are 600 main languages, not dialects, languages. So
Wow.
it's yeah. So we grew growing up in India, we speak multiple languages. So um,
Yeah, I'm
I
from India too, the southern part of India actually. So I'm from Kerala, and it's like one of the smallest states, and we have around 20 dialects in the same language, and it's like very
Wow.
different.
I know,
Wow.
I know. So it's so fascinating that, and my kids sometimes say that, "Mommy, you didn't pronounce that word right." I said, "No, that's the way I say it, and there is no right or wrong to say a word. It's just a way. It's my
That's
root, and I'm not giving it up. I'm not changing my way I talk because that's me. If I do it, I am not be the person I am. So I will keep my accent in me till I die, to my last date of life. So that's me. I
But
cherish
that's
it,
one of the,
celebrate it.
yeah, that's one of the most shocking things for me was when I first came to United States, coming from a country where 98% of population is the same nationality and speaks the same language. You come to US, especially I arrived to LA and then we moved to Boston. Both areas are just, I don't know, beehive of different cultures and different ethnicities and etc. And it was fascinating for me to
Mhm.
see so many different cultures just munched together into a single country. But then in addition to that, to me, Nuance is very unique company that has so many different cultures together. I worked in many companies in US until I ended up at Nuance, and this is the most culturally rich company. You have so many backgrounds, and everyone somehow works together with different accents, as Sharmi says, and none of us wants to give up their
No.
accent. None of us wants to give up their way of doing things, way of saying things, way of behaving. And we somehow build these beautiful and complex products.
And that's I'm proud of, that we build our speech recognition models that works for all different cultures and all different ethnicity and backgrounds and everything. So it's a beautiful quilt of everything together, put together.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You know, I actually my father, he grew up in Taiwan, and when I first joined Nuance, he really wanted to get Dragon Naturally Speaking, so I got him his own edition. And he said, I'm going to use it to actually improve my English, you know. So he would speak to it, and if he didn't get it right, he'd, oh, I need to say that a little bit differently, so he can actually recognize, you know, my poor English. But you know, it's just so interesting, you know. But to me, in my ears, I don't hear the strong accent, you know, from my family or, you know, people that I know. And actually, when you hear your coworkers and how they pronounce things, it becomes your vernacular too. You know, the way that they're expressing themselves becomes like your new body of language. And I think that's what's so interesting about living in an international, place like Boston, the Boston area, where you're exposed to that. And, from my object, I chose this plate from New York, this nameplate, which when I grew up actually in the shadow of New York. We spent a lot of time, actually, my father was working in New York City. He would often take us to New York. And so it was really a taste that we would go to Chinatown. That was the only place where we could go to really have really, really good food. And that was just a cultural experience, even just to be in a large city with, the sheer size of New York is just incredible. And I love that. And so that nameplate kind of reminds me how much I really loved New York. I didn't want to leave New York. I thought New York was the center of the world. And even when I was thinking about coming to Boston for grad school, I had been accepted to MIT. And then I go and my friends are saying to me, you don't want to go to Boston. New York is the place. Why would you leave New York? Don't leave New York. And but it actually opened up my eyes to this other diversity of this small city life that actually to me is even more enriching in this, maybe different phase of my life or something. But I found to be what really helped me even thrive as a person and even personal growth. I met my husband here. We've, grown our family here. And it's this richness that I now love. And maybe I should have a Jessica Boston nameplate, but I still reminisce about my times in New York and my friends there, and just the times that I had growing up there, and just the richness that brought to me. And even small cultural references to New York are very nice to me. So if I meet somebody that's from that area, I try to, we try to compare and see what similarities we had, growing up in that area.
So, Anne, can you give an example from your experience in life or at work that shows the importance of teamwork?
Sure. So one of the items that I selected, which is the hobby that I really like to do, are puzzle pieces. I love puzzles. I don't know why I love them since child. I can't explain why. I even remember when I was at home with 2 kids, I wrote a program that you could take a picture, cut it automatically into X number of pieces. Then it was randomizing, putting in the bottom of the screen that my kids could drag and drop and find and eventually build the picture. So
awesome.
It was just, I don't know, I was so fascinating that I could write the program, and my kids until these days remember how they were just trying to find the right things. And because you could do it every photo, sometimes I was just finding some cute things and scanning them for the kids. So this is the puzzles that I really like to do. And somehow they build character. I don't know why, but puzzles build character. You make very small progress every day. If you start a big puzzle project, like the one I have in the back, this is a puzzle I built. It's 5,000 piece puzzle. And then I frame it, I hang it on the wall because this was a big accomplishment for me. So you do very small progress every day. You need to be patient. You need to be focused. You need to take a piece and think where this piece will go. Sometimes you don't know where it will go. You set it aside and then you take another piece. So somehow I associate this with a big software architecture, with the big complex systems that I build at Nuance. And I alone cannot build this system myself. This puzzle I built with my husband and my very good friend who was staying with us for 2 months during COVID, and she's 21-year-old. I'm not afraid to say that I have a 21-year-old friend. So we built it, 3 of us. We got together every day and slowly build it. And the same is when you build this big software architecture, you have something in your head. You draw this picture, but then time comes that you have to do very small steps every day. and having this big picture in your head that eventually you build this puzzle and then you see the right thing. You can't put the piece in the wrong place. When you put the piece in the wrong place, you cannot finish it. Mm-hmm. So that's where the teamwork comes, that everyone is contributing to this bigger goal. And there is no egos here. There is nothing that you can do or the others can do. Everyone takes the puzzle piece and puts it in its own place. And that's the beauty of this puzzle and the teamwork. Even at Nuance, this last year, I started a puzzle club, and maybe Jessica saw a couple of times that we put it to kitchen tables and we were just throwing puzzle pieces, and everyone will come and put one or two puzzle pieces in this big picture, and eventually we built lots of puzzles. But what that gave us, number one, I met lots of people with whom I never talk. Number two, back to the context switch, it was giving us 10-minute context switch, and then when you go back, you solve your problems much simpler. So I don't know, this puzzle is something that is very dear to me, very much makes me feel good about my job. And the fact that I'm a software architect and I architect systems, I feel very proud that I can take a big thing and cut it into pieces that anyone can find the place to put them.
I love that. That's so cool about the puzzle, because it's like you don't even sometimes know what it's going to end up being. Sometimes you maybe don't have the picture to reference, right? And you're like, maybe this is here or there, and then I remember the puzzle in the common areas, and you're coming together with people you don't know, right? Even from different disciplines and functions, and they talk about how they're solving the puzzle together. It's fun, you know? So it's like this teamwork in a different way, beyond the work, your specific work, but it brings like this camaraderie, which is really, really
because the strategy is different, right? Everybody comes with a different angle of how to solve the problem, same problem.
But there is only one right solution. That's the beauty of puzzle. There is only one right solution. You can't put things in the wrong places. And again, in the software, it's a little bit vague. In software, it's different. You are saying, okay, you can do it one way or the other, but these are the small subtleties. But in reality, you have to know how to put the right things together in order to make the system work.
Yeah, it's like these constraints too, right? Sometimes you have the technical constraint, and then sometimes you have the business constraint, and you have to balance, right? And I think of the puzzle piece because you literally have these constraints that you're fitting, right? And it doesn't always fit. Like you think, oh, it has to be this one technical way. Well, actually the business, we need to do it this way. And you have to kind of make that balance and switch off. Anyway, this made me think about that, thinking about puzzle pieces and the constraint. Yeah. I took a kind of different object, if I can show it.
Yeah.
So I have this Polaroid camera. I don't know how many people have seen these. They have newer versions of the Polaroid cameras. I think, the Instax camera is really popular now. But, when these first came out, I bought this one actually when I was in graduate school. So I had not much money, as most graduate students don't have. And so I would go to thrift stores, and that would be so much fun because you actually look at all these things that I would think of as treasures, and they would just be, a couple of dollars. It seems like a very simple technology. You open it, you take the picture, it comes out, instant gratification of, your moment. But so much, like decades of research of how, coding technology and in multi-layer chemistry that was involved. And if you had a defect, if one person had a defect in your film, it was very catastrophic because it brings like not the same joy, to the product. And so kind of an interesting story in terms of even so many different kinds of people and disciplines to come together to make one single product, something that is in some ways, I feel in a pioneering way, the instant camera, which we now, we're very digital, but we still have, it's built upon, all of these different technologies. And so I think of the teams that had come together, and how for our products, even the teams that come together, you're surprised, and sometimes you're not surprised, because it does take a lot of work to actually build something that is delightful for your customers. So
yeah, and this is a very good example. Back to what we do at Nuance. For example, I am a software engineer, architect. I build systems, but Sharmi is a researcher who researches and finds what is the right algorithms. And then Jessica comes from the operation perspective and says, what is the right way of building this and presenting it to the customer? And that's where the whole teamwork comes.
Yeah.
And you don't have all to be on the same sort of wavelength. No, we're all in a different wavelength. We have different sort of expertise levels in different areas, but we all contribute to this constellation of the product that we produce.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating. This is one of the uniqueness of Nuance. That's why I love working for that company, because you do very different things.
So, and you are saying we are all different pieces of puzzles, and putting it together, we make the whole big picture. Yeah.
Yeah, we are pieces of puzzles.
We are pieces of puzzles, and we just put together. Yeah.
So, Sharmi, what motivates you when you're stressed at work or in life?
Yep. I actually brought this thing over here to show you guys that this rock, my son has painted it with all these beautiful colors on it, and I really like it. And then my daughter painted a little bowl, and I put the rock in the bowl by my computer over here. So the rock really symbolizes my strength, my inner strength. It will happen that ups and downs, the meeting goes difficult sometimes, hard to explain things to somebody, or I'm getting stressed out to not, things are not happening in right orders, or just sometimes frustrated with myself that I couldn't do these things in the way I wanted to be. But then take a deep breath, calm down, and just to focus on my rock, I just hold it. It just brings me back centered to my own strength, and then brings it back. And it may be just a symbolist thing, but it's just a faith inside me that if I hold it, I just calm down more and think straight. And actually what's happening inside my brain is that just to switch from the context of stress and to take myself out of it, sit down and take a deep breath, which is the real thing happening. But the rock helps me take that deep breath, switch the situation. So it's a symbol, but I encourage you girls to find something, a rock or a stone or something in your life, to just hold on to it, hang on to it as a symbol to help you find your inner strength and calm down and focus on yourself and find strength. What do you think, Anne? How do you do it?
I think we as women, we're more emotional than men are. That's known. We can't hide that. We are sometimes guided by emotions, and it's a good thing to have. Number one, it's a good thing to be emotional, but then you get into this frustrated portion that you want to calm down and you want to control it, but it's good to be emotional.
Yeah.
Emotions are good for us. So what I have is this hedgehog. It's a tiny hedgehog.
That's cute.
That is always on my desk at work. And it's funny that when we had to leave the office and work from home when the COVID pandemic started, I left the hedgehog at work
Mm-hmm.
And then we came home, and I thought maybe in a couple of weeks we'll go back, and then that didn't happen. And then got postponed and postponed until I got very, I don't know, sad that I don't have the hedgehog, because it's on my table for 15 years. Whenever I go work, the hedgehog is on my table. So I wrote a letter to Nuance crisis management team. I said, it sounds ridiculous, but I needed a hedgehog. And
that's nice.
they were so nice, packaging this hedgehog and FedExing to my house.
I should actually do that for something.
So apparently, if you write them nice letter and explain why this hedgehog calms you down, I said, it calms me down, it keeps me emotionally sort of stable, so please send it. So they send it. So this hedgehog is something very dear to me. I got it as a present from my old friend who lives back in my country. And whenever I look at this hedgehog, number one, it calms me down at the time when I'm frustrated or I'm having very hard time at work. But then also my friend who lives back in Armenia, she is a human rights advocate, and she fights against corruption. She fights for freedom of speech. She fights for free and equal education for every child in the country. And it's hard. It's hard. So whenever I look at this hedgehog, number one, I think, whatever my frustrations are uncomparable to what frustrations she is having back in my country, where she has to deal with a corrupted government, which is unbelievably complicated. But then from the work perspective, there are always frustrations. You can't have a happiness all the time. The same is in your private life. Yes, if you're happy all the time, there is maybe something wrong. You can't.
That's like eating chocolate cake all the time. Yeah. No, you cannot.
So you can have frustrations. But then what this helps me is to calm down my frustration, to focus and think, what is it I can do? What is it in my power to fix the problem? And I try to fix it. If you cannot fix it, there is nothing you can do. And all you have to do is to breathe, look at hedgehog, to breathe and say, okay, how I can make sure that next time I will not get into this situation, or next time I will do something different, that I will have more power or more leeway to fix this problem instead of getting into this situation. The other thing I like about this hedgehog, it's a curious creature. At Nuance, we have these goals that you have to meet. They're saying be curious, have a goal, think big, blah, blah, blah. So every year we are asked to choose one of these items and put in our plans, what are we going to do to meet it? And every year I check, I want to be curious. What curiosity does for me is, at my old age, I keep learning things.
Yeah.
I poke my whole nose like this hedgehog into small things and say, okay, why is this happening? Why is this new technology here? What is it going on here? What is it going on there? And that helps me to widen my horizon, to learn new things, and at the same time, be calm and, as this hedgehog, be focused on my work.
So, Jessica, can you give a few tips on how to improve self-confidence?
Yeah, thanks. In grad school again is when I actually got into records. I was actually wanting to do something. This is maybe one of the stories about confidence. I had wanted to be a radio DJ for a while. I was very shy. I was very embarrassed to maybe even speak on the radio. I would just pick records and just play them. I chose this specific record because I just love the expression of Grace Jones and her being such a different character, and also just showing this full raw expression. And I found that, when I try to be somebody that I'm not, or if I try to I feel like I'm most happy with myself when I really express myself, and I'm not just the quiet person in the room. I actually voice my opinions, and I voice the differences and things and questions that others may not, ask. And I found that through my work, that's actually proven to be beneficial, where I may see something different than others might see it. And it's important to appreciate everybody's differing opinions, and it's also good to feel confident as well in finding your voice and feeling comfort in that. And, it's something that I carry through who I meet as well, to really present my authentic self, and just really find pleasure in that, because that's where you really form those strong connections with other people.
Thank you, Jessica, Sharmi, and Anne, for spending time and talking about your experiences in life and your career. I must admit, all the stories were really inspiring. Some of them were emotional, some of them were goal oriented, and great advice. Thank you so much. So now it's your turn, young ladies. Ask these questions to a few ladies, and you will be surprised to see how these stories can inspire you.
So yeah, we had some questions come in through the chat. We had one of the first questions, I think, was from Mohammed, who's talking about public speaking and, enjoying public speaking and wanting maybe some more opportunities to practice that skill, starting at a young age, practicing it. And I'm just curious to hear, you guys are public speaking right now, right? I'm public speaking right now. So I'm curious to hear from you guys about, some of your feelings around public speaking, how you might practice to get better. Do you have nerves when public speaking? I know I do sometimes. I do right now, but it's important to practice. I'm curious from you guys about your first times engaging with public speaking and how you maybe even approached this event.
One advice I have, and I think that helped me a lot, and I got this advice maybe 10, 15 years ago from current Nuance CTO, when he asked me to present in front of whole healthcare, a presentation which was going to be exactly 7 minutes. And it was a technical presentation. So I said, I can't, I'm an engineer. I will put so many slides, I have to say so many things. And he called me to his office for a 15-minute meeting and said, listen, Anne, you have 7 minutes. Don't go through everything. Think about your talking points. Think about the message that you will convey to this crowd. Not everyone is technical there. These are people from, let's say, support organization, business organization, marketing organization, engineering organization, researchers. So try to convey your message. And he said, my advice to you, stand in front of mirror and try to convey your message in 7 minutes. And that helped me. I actually practiced in front of mirror, timing myself. Of course, I wasn't, let's say, good for 7, 8 times, but then probably 10th time, I got to maybe 6 minutes, 55 seconds. And then it's interesting because when I was presenting, there was this timer in front of me, the slides are going and etc. But because you have this adrenaline rush while you are talking live in front of so many people, you go faster. And then all of a sudden I finished in 6 minutes, 30 seconds. So my advice, practice, practice, practice. But then if you have a time limit, know that you will be doing it faster. And I play piano, and I know from my piano playing experience, when you are in front of audience, when you are performing, you always play at a faster speed than when you were practicing or when you were preparing for a concert. So know that you will be finishing a little bit earlier. So you might be, let's say, more on the safe side that will, let's say, add maybe 30, 40 seconds to your sort of presentation.
Also, one more thing is you have to know your audience too. So who you are presenting to. And suppose you're presenting a very technical document but that's what you prepared, and your background is very technical, but you're presenting to a group of people who has not much knowledge about that. They are wanting to learn about it from a much bigger viewpoint than detailed into it. And if you go into more in that details, you'll lose your audience so quickly. And so knowing your audience, who you are presenting to, what you're presenting to, is a very important thing. So so you have to practice that, like how you are approaching your speech, what direction from. And also, there are several things to help you boost your confidence, like posture and thinking, like how you open up, and then to just have some. It's already proven that the way you sit, you stand, the way you look at it, these just brings your own confidence out, and then you just go to the stage, talk. It just happens naturally. So those are some of the things you may think before just going to the thing. And then also your presentation, make it more like a storytelling. The more you have it like, these are, maybe you have a cheat sheet of bullet points you have to present, but just go ahead and tell your story. Just go for it. Yeah.
Sharmi made an interesting sort of point, your posture. And this is another thing that actually I learned probably very early in my career. I'm very short. Now you see me from this above. I'm sitting, it looks like I'm tall, but I'm exactly 5 feet. So, and in my career, I have always dealt with very tall men. I don't know why it is my reality. So you always wear a little bit high heels and you stand straight and you are not afraid. Okay, I'm short, I have gray hair, I have accent. It doesn't matter. If you know your craft, if you know what you're talking about, it doesn't matter. And that brings you the confidence. Until sometime help.
I would love to hear from Susan, you as well. You're earlier in your career journey and have been able to take an internship with Nuance, which means you had to do some interviews and I'm sure some public speaking. And I'm curious how maybe you practice for those and what your tips might be.
My internship interview with Nuance was at Sharmi, and it was through a video call. So I mean, it always makes you nervous when an interview is through a video call rather than in person. So what I did was I practiced with my roommate, and she was like very helpful. And I practiced this many times so that it gives me confidence. Sometimes, even if you know what to tell, sometimes it creates confusion in you saying that, is that what you're supposed to say for that question or something like that? I mean, and all these kinds of issues comes when you're not talking to that person in person. I mean, yeah. And then for that interview, I mean, I was not able to see Sharmi's face, so I didn't know what Sharmi's expressions were. So that made me like more conscious. But I think if we practice, it would definitely create self-confidence. And you don't need to bother about what people's expressions are or what they have in their mind if you're really confident about what you are talking about. Yeah.
Thank you, Susan. I know we don't have a ton of time left, but we do have another question that came in from Narika. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And asked, what are your greatest achievements? And I would love to hear answers from all of you on that, on what your greatest achievements are.
So should I start because I'm the oldest one?
Yes.
You know, I don't want to sound sentimental here, but if you ask me what are my greatest achievements, I consider raising 2 good human beings and giving it to the planet, saying, hey, planet, these are 2 good human beings I raised, and I'm giving it to you. That's the greatest achievement in my career. Regarding work, I love building systems. And even at my age, I still think, and it sounds very, very silly, I still think my greatest achievement is still ahead of me.
I agree
in
with
my
that.
career.
Yeah. I was going to say the exact same thing, and that Yeah, our life is so dynamic, and I don't think I have achieved and it's the greatest, but again, the next day is another greatest thing happening. So yes, me being the mom, yes, that's a very really satisfying and good feedback coming and constant changing. There are days when my kids scream at me that they don't like me because I'm mean mom, and then there are days like they love me so much, like kisses and everything. So it's all gratification, satisfaction at the same time. At work also, it's so and I yeah, and you and I were talking about that other day, that our job is so dynamic, and things we study in our degrees where we learned our in our PhD or in our or wherever I did study, um, things have changed. So now what we are doing at my work, many of the things I learned from work, and constantly learning process and achieving every single day different things. So I don't think I have a greatest achievement thing. It's just a whole experience of my life as a working at Nuance and having my family and multitasking and doing things for my kids, for our world, and I volunteer work, and everything together is a whole package of constantly moving, achieving days.
Thanks, Sharmi. And
Yeah.
yes, Susan, I'd love to hear your perspective also.
Yeah, so I don't have much achievements in terms of my life, but I can talk about in terms of my career and education. So, the place where I come from, I mean, the tradition is that once you graduate out of college, you work for a few years. This is for girls. After that, you get married. So that's the normal trend. So what happened was like my family started trying to get me married, but then I said no, this is not where I gonna be ending up. I want to go for higher education, and I want to go abroad and learn about different cultures and how the education is like abroad outside of my country. And in the beginning they were not very supportive because especially my dad is overprotective, so he couldn't even think of sending his daughter away to a foreign country alone by herself. So that was very challenging. I had to like convince my parents and put pressure on them and show that I'm really interested in going and studying more. And after that, I came to Canada. I got admission in Dalhousie University and I started my master's. But then the actual difficulties and challenges came to me because everybody came from a background. I mean, I had taken a master's of applied computer science. So all my colleagues were from a computer science background. And talking about my background, I did my undergrads in electronics and communication. So I didn't know a thing about programming, not even to do a proper follow. So it was actually a very big struggle trying to cope up with my colleagues. And I kind of failed in my first semester in the first midterm. And then I realized I need to change the way I'm studying, not like how I used to study in my country, where I was in a very comfortable environment, where they taught me from the basics. Because in masters, they don't teach you any basics. They assume that you know everything because they selected you in the university. So what I did was I changed my way of studying. I started putting more effort, and somehow I started coping up with my colleagues. But then in the end, if you look at my grades, I kind of came to the top 10. So that, I think that was a great achievement. And I'm pretty sure my parents are really proud of me. They were like scared in the beginning, and they started thinking of backups and what about applying to a different university if you're thrown out. But then they were like so proud. And now I'm 27 and still not married, but my parents do not regret that because I made a choice and I made a career and a life of my own. And now I can think of marrying or the next step. Yeah. And then
Oh,
I got,
Susan.
yeah. And then Sharmi interviewed me and she took me to Nuance. And especially I am in the R&D department. I never imagined that I would be a part of the research team coming from different backgrounds after putting so much effort, facing a lot of challenges, but I'm still here. So I think I'm proud of this achievement. Yeah.
Wow, very proud of you to have you in our team. Yes.
Thanks.
I love your point there too about how when you first started school, you had some failures, and then you really just learned to adapt, which is so important in life. You have to learn to fail and to change course and, or stay the course, but try something different as you're moving along.
Yeah.
So that's a great piece of information for you to have shared. So I want to thank all of you for coming. We're just about out of time. So appreciate it. It's been a great conversation. And we're glad to have you guys as partners and Nuance as a partner along the way. So thanks for sharing your career journeys.